Do you even know what time it is? Mark's voice hit me before I could even close the front door. I froze with one hand still on my bag and the other on the knob. My feet ached from standing all day, my shoulders felt like stone, and my head was pounding from the double shift I had never planned to work. It was a little after 10. The kitchen light was on. The living room was dark except for the blue glow of the television. I opened my mouth to answer, but Mark was already walking toward me. I said, "Do you know what time it is?" He shouted. "I just got off work, Mark." His face twisted like that explanation only made him angrier. Work, work, that is always your excuse. Before I could step back, his hand flew across my face. The slap cracked through the room. For 1 second I heard nothing. Not the television, not the hum of the refrigerator, not even my own breathing. Just that sharp sound in my head and then the sting blooming across my cheek. From the couch, my daughter Ashley let out a laugh under her breath. "Mom, you're pathetic." I turned slowly and looked at her. She was 16, curled up with her phone in one hand, painted nails flashing in the light, her mouth twisted in that cruel little smile she had started wearing more and more lately. She did not look shocked. She looked entertained. Something in me dropped. Not broke. Broke would have meant noise, tears, some kind of release. This was quieter than that. It was like a floor inside me gave way, and I kept standing only because I did not yet know how far I had fallen. Mark pointed at the clock on the wall like he was in court, and the clock was his witness. Dinner was supposed to be ready hours ago. Ashley had rehearsal. I had meetings, but of course none of that matters to you. I stared at him. I had heard these lines before in different forms with different tones. You forgot. You failed. You embarrassed me. You don't care. But tonight, something about hearing them while my cheek still burned and my own daughter sat there smirking at me made the words feel stranger than ever. "I worked a double shift because Carol called in sick," I said quietly. "I texted you at 4, then again at 6. I told you there was lasagna in the fridge. All you had to do was heat it up." Mark laughed without humor. "You expect me to come home after 10 hours and cook too." I blinked. 10 hours. He was a sales manager at a furniture store, not a man down in a mine. He sat in air conditioning and talked people into buying sectional sofas. I knew because for years I had been the one ironing his shirts and packing his lunches and pretending his temper was stress instead of something darker. Ashley rolled her eyes. Here we go again. I looked at her. "Ashley, I worked all day." She sat up straighter. "So what? Everybody works. You always act like you are the only person with problems." That stung more than the slap. Because I knew that voice. It was his voice, coming out of her young, pretty face. The same contempt, the same impatience, the same way of making me sound weak for carrying what no one else wanted to hold. Mark folded his arms. "You know what your problem is, Lena." I did not answer. "You think because you bring in some paycheck, that makes you important." Some paycheck. For 19 years, I had held that house together with some paycheck. I had worked mornings at the grocery store when Ashley was little, then billing at the clinic, then nights at the nursing home when Mark got laid off 3 times in 6 years and called every loss bad luck. I had paid electric bills, bought school shoes, covered late mortgage payments, and smiled through church potlucks like we were a happy family. Some paycheck had kept the lights on. I set my bag down carefully on the entry table. "I am tired, Mark." He stepped closer. "Good. Maybe being tired will teach you to think about this family before yourself." I actually laughed then, but it came out small and broken. "Before myself." Ashley stood up. "Dad, stop arguing with her. She loves this. She always wants to act like the victim." I turned toward her fully now, my heart thudding in a slow, painful rhythm. "Ashley, do you hear yourself?" "Do you?" She snapped back. "You are never here. You missed my last 2 rehearsals. You forgot to sign my field trip form. You made me take my own birthday cupcakes to school because you were too busy. You always say you are doing everything for us, but honestly, it just feels like you do not even like being home." Every word landed exactly where it could do the most damage. because every word carried a piece of truth twisted into something uglier. I had missed rehearsals. I had forgotten the form. I had handed her a box of cupcakes at 7 in the morning with wet hair and no sleep because I had come off an overnight shift and still needed to be at the pharmacy by 9. I had not wanted to be away from home. I had wanted us to survive. But survival is quiet. It does not dress nice. It does not clap at school events. It does not post smiling photos online. Survival looks like a woman counting dollars in a parking lot and deciding which bill can wait one more week. And children do not always know the difference. Mark shook his head like he was disappointed in me instead of himself. You hear that? Even your own daughter sees it. My cheek still burned. My chest felt hollow. Then maybe both of you should eat the cold lasagna and enjoy the rest of your night, I said. The room went still. Ashley looked offended, as if I had said something unforgivable. Mark's eyes narrowed. Excuse me. I bent, picked up my bag again, and took one step toward the hallway. He grabbed my wrist. Not so fast. His fingers tightened hard enough to hurt. I looked down at his hand, then back at his face. There was a time I would have pulled away and apologized just to keep the peace. There was a time I would have cried. There was a time I would have begged Ashley not to talk to me like that because I still believed a soft voice could soften hard hearts. That time was slipping away. Let go of me, I said. Or what? It was almost funny, the way he said it. Not because it was funny, but because he truly believed nothing would happen. He believed the world had trained me to absorb whatever he gave and still wake up before dawn to make coffee. Ashley crossed her arms. Dad, she is being dramatic. I turned my head and looked at my daughter for a long second. When you grow up, I said softly, I hope no one teaches you that cruelty makes you strong. Her face changed for just a second, only a second. A flicker, guilt or discomfort maybe, but Mark squeezed my wrist again and it vanished. He leaned in. You want to talk about cruelty? Try living with someone who is always failing this family. Something in me finally answered him. No, Mark, I said. Cruelty is slapping your wife because dinner was cold. Cruelty is letting your daughter believe disrespect is confidence. Cruelty is standing in a house I helped pay for and talking to me like I am nothing. He let go so suddenly, I almost stumbled. For a moment, none of us spoke. Ashley looked between us. The television murmured in the background. Outside, a car drove past, bass thumping faintly through closed windows. Mark laughed again, but this time there was a little uncertainty in it. Oh, so now you have courage. No, I said. Now I am tired enough to stop pretending. I walked past him and went down the hall toward our bedroom. My hands were shaking, but not from fear anymore. It was anger, yes, but something else too. Something colder. Something that had been growing quietly under years of being talked over, dismissed, blamed, and used. I closed the bedroom door behind me and locked it. Mark hit the door once with his palm. Lena. I ignored him. Open this door. I sat on the edge of the bed and pressed both hands to my face. My cheek pulsed under my fingers. The room smelled faintly like lavender from the cheap spray I used on the curtains. On the dresser was a framed picture from 7 years ago, me and Ashley at the county fair, both of us laughing with powdered sugar on our shirts. She had hugged my waist that day and told me I was her best friend. I picked up the frame and stared at it until my eyes blurred. When had I lost her? No, not lost. That was too simple. When had someone taken my daughter's soft heart and fed it bitterness until she started sounding like the man who had spent years reducing me in front of her? There was a soft knock at the door. Not Mark this time. Mom. Ashley. I did not answer right away. Mom, open the door. Her voice was different, less sharp, younger. I stood and walked to the door but did not unlock it. What? A pause. I just wanted to say, you made Dad really mad. I closed my eyes. That was what she came to say. Not are you okay, not I am sorry, not he should not have hit you. Just that I had made him mad. I rested my forehead against the door. Go to bed, Ashley. Another pause. You always do this, she muttered. You make everything weird. Then I heard her footsteps retreat. I stayed there a long time, leaning against the door, feeling the full weight of the house around me. A house that sounded normal from the outside. A house with clean curtains, a trimmed lawn, school photos on the wall, and neighbors who waved. A house where pain had become routine enough to pass for family life. My phone buzzed on the bed. I almost ignored it, but then I saw the screen. Unknown number. At that hour, I nearly let it ring out, but something made me answer. Hello. Is this Lena Carter? A woman asked. Yes. This is Diane from Miller and Pike. I frowned, the law office. Yes, ma'am. I am sorry to call so late, but your voicemail was full, and Mr. Pike asked me to reach you as soon as possible. It is regarding your mother's estate. My breath caught. My mother had died 3 months earlier in Ohio after a second stroke. We had not been close at the end. Too many old wounds, too many years, too much silence. I had gone for the funeral, come back the next day, and never had the space to grieve properly. I knew there was paperwork. I knew she had owned a small house. But I had expected old dishes, some furniture, maybe a little money if the place sold. I swallowed. What about it? There was a brief silence on the other end. Ma'am, there have been some developments, and according to the documents we reviewed this afternoon, you need to come in as soon as possible. There are things in the will your husband may not know. I straightened slowly. What things? I am afraid I cannot explain all of it over the phone. But I will say this, Ms. Carter. Your mother left very specific instructions, and if anyone in your household has been pressuring you financially, you should not discuss this with them until you speak with us. My heart started pounding. Pressuring me financially. The woman lowered her voice. Your mother left a letter too, sealed, for you alone. I sat down on the bed, staring at nothing. In the hallway outside, I heard Mark's heavy footsteps moving away, then the sound of the refrigerator door opening in the kitchen. The law office woman said my name again, but her voice sounded far away now. Because suddenly, in one dizzying moment, everything in my house looked different. My husband's anger. His growing interest in my finances these past few months. The way he kept asking whether my mother had left anything useful. The way Ashley repeated his opinions like they were facts. And the cold, sharp thought that entered my mind then was so clear it frightened me. Maybe tonight had not just been cruelty. Maybe it had been calculation. And if that was true, then the slap at the front door was only the beginning of what they had planned. I gripped the phone tighter as Diane said, "Please come tomorrow morning. There is something else you need to know." "What?" I whispered. She hesitated. "Someone has already tried to access part of your inheritance." The line went quiet. And in that silent bedroom, with my cheeks still burning and my heart turning to ice, I realized someone in my own house had started a war I had not even known I was fighting. By 6 the next morning, I was already dressed and sitting in my car outside Miller, and Pike with a paper cup of coffee gone cold in my hands. I had barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mark's face, then Ashley's, then my mother's old kitchen in Ohio with the yellow curtains and chipped blue plates she refused to throw away. I kept hearing Diane's voice in my head. Someone has already tried to access part of your inheritance. Not asked about it. Not guessed. Tried to access it. That meant forms, information, names, signatures, maybe even more. It meant intention. Planning. It meant someone close enough to know my business had moved before I even knew there was anything to move toward. I looked up at the law office building. It was small, brick, and plain, squeezed between a dentist's office and a tax service. Nothing about it looked dramatic enough to hold the answer to whatever had been quietly poisoning my life. But my stomach was tight anyway. At home, I had left before Mark woke up. Ashley's bedroom door had been shut. I stood outside it for a moment before leaving, my hand hovering near the wood, wondering whether to knock. I did not. I did not trust myself to hear her voice first thing in the morning and still walk out steady. Inside the office, everything smelled like paper, old carpet, and coffee that had sat too long on a warmer. Diane looked exactly like she sounded on the phone, early 50s maybe, kind eyes, practical haircut, low voice. She stood as soon as I walked in. "Ms. Carter, Lena is fine." She gave me a small, sympathetic smile. "Mr. Pike is ready for you." I followed her down a narrow hall, each step making my heart beat harder. By the time she opened the office door, my palms were damp. A gray-haired man in glasses rose from behind his desk. He looked careful, like someone who had spent most of his career choosing words that could not be misunderstood. "Ms. Carter, I'm Howard Pike. Please sit." I sat. He folded his hands. "First, let me say I'm sorry for your loss." I nodded, "Thank you." He studied me for a second, then opened a file. "Your mother, Elaine Foster, updated her will 8 months before her death. She also added a codicil 6 weeks later and placed several written instructions under attorney protection. We were authorized to release them only after her passing and only to you." I stared at him. My mother and I had barely been speaking by then. We had never fully recovered from the years after my father died, when I moved out at 19 with Mark, and she told me I was throwing my life away for a charming man with empty pockets. I had called her controlling. She had called me blind. After that, things between us always felt half-healed and half-broken. "Why didn't anyone contact me sooner?" I asked. He gave a tired little sigh. "We tried. The first mailing to the address on file was returned. The phone number we had for you was outdated until Diane located your current employer yesterday. As for the sealed letter, your mother was very clear. It was to be hand-delivered or read in person, not mailed again." My mouth went dry. "What is in the will?" He opened the folder wider and turned a page toward me. "The house in Ohio was sold 2 weeks after probate clearance. Your mother had already arranged that process with a trustee. She also had investment accounts, a life insurance policy, and a savings certificate that matured after her death." I tried to do the math in my head, but I could not. My mother had never looked wealthy. She drove old cars, wore sensible shoes, and still clipped coupons like it was a sacred duty. Mr. Pike adjusted his glasses. "After taxes and fees, the estate value transferred to you is $1,840,000. For a second, I honestly thought I had heard him wrong. I blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" He repeated it, slower this time. I let out a short, empty laugh that did not feel like mine. "No, that can't be right." "It is," he said gently. "Your mother was more financially secure than most people realized. She inherited mineral rights from her father, sold them 10 years ago, and invested carefully. She lived modestly, but she did not die poor." I sat back in the chair, like the air had changed around me. Nearly $2 million. My mother had died while I was picking up overtime to keep our house from slipping behind on bills. She had died while I was telling myself I could not leave my marriage because I did not have enough saved to survive the legal mess. She had died while Mark was lecturing me about my little paycheck. I pressed my fingers to my temples. "There's more," Mr. Pike said quietly. Of course there was. He slid another paper across the desk. 3 months before your mother's death, someone called this office claiming to be assisting you with your personal matters. He said you were overwhelmed, grieving in advance, and wanted your marital assets coordinated for estate planning." My chest tightened. "Who?" "A man, identifying himself as Mark Carter." I went completely still. "He said he was your husband and had authorization to discuss preliminary transfer questions. Our staff declined, of course, and told him we could only speak directly with you or with a notarized power of attorney. 2 weeks later, a woman called saying she was your daughter and that you were too emotional to manage details. She asked whether beneficiary forms could be emailed for family review." I felt sick. "Ashley," I whispered. "The request was denied," he said. "Then, last month, we received an online inquiry that included your full legal name, date of birth, former Ohio address, and partial social security number. It appeared to be an attempt to reset access to one of the financial portals used by the trustee. That triggered a security lock and an internal review. I stared at the page in front of me, but the words were swimming now. Mark had called. Ashley had called. Not after my mother died. Before. That detail was what made the blood drain out of my face. Before she died, they had already been circling her money like vultures. Mr. Pike's voice softened. Your mother anticipated this possibility. I looked up sharply. She knew. He nodded. She wrote that she had concerns about your husband's interest in her estate and about pressure being placed on you. She instructed us to make sure no spouse, child, or joint household member had access to any account information until you met with us privately. I laughed once, but pain was all that came out. She knew, and she still barely spoke to me at the end. Mr. Pike reached into the file and took out a sealed envelope, worn cream-colored paper, with my name written across the front in my mother's slanted handwriting. She said this would explain her thinking better than we could. My fingers shook as I took it. Open it here, he said, if you'd like. I slid one finger under the flap and unfolded the letter slowly. Lena, if you are reading this, then I am gone, and I need you to hear me at last without pride standing between us. You were right about one thing. I was hard on you. Too hard sometimes. After your father died, fear made me speak like control. I thought if I held too tightly, life could not steal you too. Instead, I pushed you away. For that, I am sorry. But I was not wrong about Mark. A hot sting rushed behind my eyes. I kept reading. I watched that man study money every time he came into my home. I watched him count what other people had and speak of love only when a bill was due. I watched you shrink year by year, and each time I tried to warn you, you defended him so fiercely that I knew pressure alone would only bind you to him more. So I stopped arguing and started preparing. If he has not changed, then listen carefully. Do not tell him what you receive. Do not place anything in a joint account. Do not let guilt, habit, or your daughter's confusion talk you into surrendering your future. Ashley is still young. She may not see clearly yet. He has had years to shape what she hears. That line hit me so hard, I stopped breathing for a moment. He has had years to shape what she hears. My mother had seen it, seen Ashley slipping from me, not because my daughter was born cruel, but because she had been taught who to admire and who to blame. My vision blurred, but I kept going. You have always mistaken endurance for duty. Endurance is holy only when it protects life. It becomes a prison when it protects abuse. Leave if you must, fight if you must, but do not stay because you are afraid to begin again. I have made sure you can begin again. There are documents enclosed with instructions to transfer all assets into a protected individual trust under your sole control. You may also use the enclosed contact list for a family law attorney, a financial advisor, and if you will forgive an old woman her last interference, a therapist. One more thing. The red notebook in my cedar chest was not burned. I lied to you about that. I kept it because I believed one day you might need proof that your memory was not wrong. If Mark ever tells you you imagined who he was from the beginning, read the notebook. Love, in the clumsy way I always carried it. Mom. I lowered the letter slowly. My throat ached. For years, I had told myself my mother did not understand me. Maybe that was partly true, but right there in my lap was proof that she had understood more than I wanted to admit. She had known I was drowning before I did. Mr. Pike waited quietly. Finally, he said, "There is also the matter of the red notebook. Our office retrieved a cedar chest from the house before the sale because it was itemized separately in the will. It's in storage. If you want it, we can arrange delivery today." "What is the notebook?" I asked. He gave a slight shrug. "We didn't open it, but your mother attached a note identifying it as personal evidence to be preserved for her daughter." Personal evidence. The phrase turned over in my mind. There was only one thing I could imagine. When I was 19, right before I moved out with Mark, I had kept a red notebook under my bed for almost a year. It had started as a journal and become a place where I wrote down things he said because he had a way of denying them later. Promises, threats, lies, apologies, fights. I had stopped writing in it after Ashley was born. At some point, I thought it had been lost in one of our moves. My mother must have taken it from my old room. I sat there with the letter in my hands and felt the years folding in on each other. 19-year-old me, 26-year-old me holding a crying baby, 32-year-old me covering a bill Mark swore he had paid, 41-year-old me standing in the doorway last night with a burning cheek while my daughter laughed. Mr. Pike cleared his throat gently. Ms. Carter, there is something else we need to discuss. Given the attempted access activity, we strongly recommend you do not return home tonight if you believe you're at risk. I looked up. He was watching me carefully, not pushing, just placing the truth where I could not ignore it. You think I'm in danger? I think, he said slowly, that people who feel money slipping away can become unpredictable, especially if they already believe they're entitled to it. Entitled? That was Mark exactly. He moved through life like other people's effort was his due. If I cooked, if I worked, if I cleaned, if I forgave, he treated it all like interest paid on a debt I never knew I owed. I rubbed my hands together. I have nowhere to go. Mr. Pike opened a drawer and handed me a card. The family law attorney your mother listed also works with a domestic abuse advocacy network. Even if you don't want police involved yet, they can help with safe lodging, planning, and documentation. The word abuse landed with a strange weight. Not because it was unfamiliar. Because hearing it from someone outside, my house made it impossible to minimize. I slipped the card into my purse. Thank you. He nodded once. We can begin the transfer paperwork now, if you're ready. I signed so many forms my hand cramped. Sole beneficiary acknowledgement, trust instructions, security freezes, contact restrictions, identity verification. By the end of it, nearly 2 hours had passed. When I finally stepped back into the parking lot, the sun was higher, the day brighter, and my life no longer looked the way it had looked when I drove there. My phone had 12 missed calls. 9 from Mark. 3 from Ashley. I stared at the screen. Then a new text came in from Mark. Where are you? A second one. You left before making breakfast. Ashley is upset. Then another. Don't start with your drama. Answer me. And then, after a minute. Did you go to that lawyer place? My whole body went cold. I had never told him the name. I had barely known it myself. Another text followed fast. Call me now. I stood beside my car, the cold coffee still in the cup holder, the letter from my mother tucked in my bag, and understood something with complete clarity. He knew exactly what office I was at because he had already been in contact with them. He had not just been curious. He had been waiting. The phone started ringing again, Mark's name flashing across the screen. I let it ring, then ring again, then stop. A voicemail notification appeared almost immediately. I don't know what game you're playing, Lena, but you better bring your ass home right now before this gets worse. A minute later, Ashley texted. Mom, Dad is furious. What did you do? I closed my eyes for 1 second. Not what did he do. What did you do? The same house, the same script, the same blame. I was about to get into my car when Diane rushed out the front door behind me. Ms. Carter, wait. I turned. She was breathing a little hard, one hand holding the door open behind her. We just got a call from the storage company handling your mother's cedar chest. Someone showed up this morning asking for it by name. My stomach dropped. Who? Diane swallowed. Your husband. I stared at her. He said the chest belonged to family property and that he was there on your behalf. When they refused, he got angry. Very angry. They called us because your file had already been flagged. The parking lot seemed to tilt under me. He wasn't just calling and texting. He was already moving. Already chasing, whatever he thought my mother left behind. Diane stepped closer and lowered her voice. "Ms. Carter, I really think you should go somewhere safe right now." I opened my mouth to answer, but my phone buzzed again in my hand. This time it was not Mark. It was Ashley. Just 4 words. "Mom, come home now." Then another message appeared before I could even think. "Dad found something." I stared at the screen. And before I could ask what she meant, a photo came through. It was my bedroom. My closet doors were open. Drawers dumped out. The mattress half pulled off the bed. And in the center of the floor, held in Mark's hand like a threat, was the old yellow envelope from my mother's funeral papers that I thought I had hidden too well for anyone to notice. Under the photo, Ashley wrote one more message. "He says if you don't come back in 1 hour, he's opening everything." I read Ashley's message 3 times before the words truly settled in. "Mom, come home now. Dad found something." Then that picture of my bedroom, ripped apart like a crime scene. And the envelope in Mark's hand. For a second, I could not move. The parking lot around me felt too bright, too normal for what was happening. Cars passed. A man in a blue shirt came out of the dentist's office holding a child's hand. Somewhere nearby, a lawn mower started up. The world kept going while mine had just tilted hard in a new direction. Diane touched my arm lightly. "Lena." I looked up at her. "He's tearing through my room." Her face tightened. "Then please do not go back there alone." I looked down at my phone again. Mark's text threats. Ashley's panic. My mother's letter in my purse. Nearly $2 million now protected on paper, but my life still sitting inside a house with a man who had just proven he would tear it apart to get what he wanted. I wanted my clothes, my passport, my work badge, my grandmother's ring in the little ceramic dish on my dresser, the framed photo of Ashley at 8 in her ballet shoes, smiling with all her baby teeth still there. Normal things, small things, the pieces of a life that suddenly seemed dangerous to retrieve. But I also knew something else. If I walked back into that house the wrong way, I would not be walking into a conversation. I would be walking into a trap. Mr. Pike came outside then, coat on, face serious. "My assistant filled me in. I've already called the attorney on your mother's list. She can see you this afternoon. In the meantime, do you have anyone local you trust?" The answer came too slowly. My younger brother lived in Arizona. My closest friend from work, Tasha, rented a 1-bedroom with 2 boys and a mother recovering from surgery. Church friends knew Mark as charming and hardworking. Neighbors knew us as the family with the neat lawn and holiday lights. I had spent so many years covering for him that I had almost no one left who knew the truth well enough to understand urgency. "There's Tasha," I said finally, "but she's working till 3. "Then call her," he said. So I did. She answered on the second ring. "Lena, you okay?" "No." That was all I said before my voice broke. Tasha did not waste time asking for polished explanations. She said, "Where are you?" And I told her. She said, "Stay there. I'm calling my cousin. She works at the Women's Center downtown. Don't go home. Do you hear me? Don't go home." I looked again at Ashley's messages and said nothing. Tasha knew my silences. "Lena." "I'm hearing you," I said. "No, I need you to do more than hear me. I need you to listen." My throat tightened. "Okay." "Good, I'll call you back in 5. She hung up. I stood there holding the dead phone and felt the strange, unfamiliar pressure of people taking my safety seriously. It should have comforted me, but mostly it made me feel ashamed. Ashamed that it had gotten this bad. Ashamed that my mother had seen it before I did. Ashamed that my daughter had become part of the machinery that kept me small. But shame was useless now. Shame had bought Mark years of protection. I lifted my head. "Mr. Pike, if I don't go back, he'll destroy everything." He gave me a long look. "Maybe, but if you do go back, he may destroy more than things." That ended the argument. Diane guided me back inside and sat me in the small conference room with water, tissues, and a notepad. The kindness of it nearly undid me. I had been so starved for simple, respectful treatment that water in a clean glass felt like mercy. My phone rang again. Mark. I rejected the call. It rang again immediately. I rejected that one too. Then Ashley called. That one I answered. Mom, where are you? She blurted out before I could speak. Dad is losing it. I closed my eyes. Is he with you right now? He's in your room again. My room, not their room, not the bedroom. Even in her fear, she was telling the truth without meaning to. Ashley, listen to me carefully. Go lock yourself in your room. What? No, why? Because I said so. Her breathing quickened. Mom, you're scaring me. A bitter thought rose in me. Good. Maybe fear would do what love had failed to do and make her see something clearly for once. But when I spoke, my voice stayed even. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to protect you. Go to your room, lock the door, and stay there. He's not going to hurt me, she said quickly. The certainty in her voice was young and terrible. He loves me. I pressed my fingers to my forehead. Ashley, people can love you and still hurt you, especially when they're angry, especially when they want control. She went quiet. Then she said, he said you're trying to steal from us. The us nearly took my breath away. I'm not stealing from anyone, I said. This was never his money. He said Grandma wanted family taken care of. Did he also tell you he tried to get to it before she even died? Silence. I heard a thud in the background, then a drawer slamming. Ashley whispered, what? I stood so fast the chair scraped the floor. He called the law office before Grandma died, I said. So did you? I didn't know what it was, she said quickly. He just told me to ask some questions because you were stressed and Grandma wanted things organized. He said he was helping. Another thud, louder this time. Ashley, go lock your door now. Mom, I didn't know, she said, and for the first time since last night, she sounded like my child again. I swear I didn't know. My eyes filled instantly. I believe you. That was not the same as forgiving her, but I believed she had been used. Used because she was young, eager to belong, eager to side with the stronger parent, eager to believe his version because it made the world simpler. Mom, what do I do? Before I could answer, Mark's voice roared in the background. Who are you talking to? Ashley sucked in a breath. No one. He's in the hallway, she whispered. Lock your door, Ashley, now. I heard hurried footsteps, then a door slam. Then Mark pounding once on wood. Open up. I stood frozen in the conference room, while my daughter breathed too fast into the phone. Dad, stop. Open the door and give me the phone. No. That word from Ashley was small but real. Then came another bang, harder. Ashley gasped. I'm calling the police, I said. No, she cried. Mom, please. But I was already waving at Diane through the glass wall. Her face changed at once. She reached for the phone on the table and dialed before I even finished saying the word police. Into my phone, I said, Ashley, stay away from the door. He says you're making the family fall apart. The words made tears spill down my face because they were so cruelly familiar. That had always been the trick. He broke things, then blamed the person bleeding. I kept my voice steady. I am not making this family fall apart. I am telling the truth about what it already is. The pounding stopped. For 1 second, everything on the line went quiet. Then Ashley whispered, Mom. Yes. He just walked away. I let out one breath, but not relief. Not yet. Stay inside. Don't open your door until police get there. Do you hear me? Okay. Her voice shook now. Mom. Yes. I'm sorry. The room blurred. I gripped the edge of the table to stay steady. I know. The line disconnected. For a long moment, I just stood there with the silent phone in my hand, crying soundlessly while Diane spoke to dispatch nearby, and Mr. Pike stood in the doorway, grave and still. By the time officers reached the house, Ashley was the one who opened the front door for them, not Mark. He had gone out the back and disappeared before they arrived. Of course he had. Cowards are often fastest when witnesses appear. An officer called me from the scene. His voice was neutral, practiced. "Ma'am, your daughter is safe. Your bedroom appears to have been searched extensively. We have documented visible damage. Your daughter states there was an argument and that your husband left on foot or by vehicle before our arrival. Do you wish to come to the house now?" No. The answer surprised even me by how quickly it came. "I don't want to be there without legal support." A pause. Understood. "Your daughter does not want to remain alone. We can stay until someone arrives, but not indefinitely." I looked at the clock on the conference room wall. Tasha called back right then, like she had been sent by God or timing or pure luck. "My cousin can take Ashley for the night," she said. "Safe place. Women's Center has family rooms upstairs. They do emergency overflow sometimes. What do you need?" I swallowed hard. I need someone to pick up my daughter from the house. "Done," she said. "Text me the address." I did. Then I called the officer back and told him a safe adult was coming for Ashley. He agreed to wait until the handoff. The next 30 minutes felt like 3 hours. Ashley texted only once. "He took your jewelry box." I stared at the screen. Then another text. "And the small fireproof box from the closet shelf." My knees weakened. The fireproof box held our birth certificates, social security cards, my passport, the deed copy for the house, the title to my old Honda, and a folder of work records. Mark knew exactly what he was taking. Not valuables for cash, but documents for power. He wasn't just angry. He was planning. I showed the text to Mr. Pike. His face hardened. "That needs to be reported immediately." It was. The officer added it to the incident notes. When Tasha's cousin, Renee, arrived at the house and texted me that Ashley was with her, breathing and safe, I finally let myself sit down again. I had not realized how tightly I had been holding my whole body until then. Mr. Pike sat across from me. "You said earlier that you thought last night might have been calculation, not just cruelty." I nodded. "You were right." I looked at him, exhausted. "Then why do I still feel shocked?" "Because," he said gently, "the truth can be obvious and still hurt when it finally stands all the way up." That sentence stayed with me. By noon, I was in another office across town, this one sharper and newer, with framed degrees on the wall, and a woman named Carla Benton reviewing my notes with quick, intelligent eyes. My mother's family law attorney. She was younger than I expected, maybe late 30s, calm in a way that made panic seem inefficient. "Let me summarize," she said. "Your husband physically assaulted you, threatened you, searched your room, attempted to seize documents linked to a private inheritance, intimidated your daughter, fled before police arrived, and likely removed identity documents and legal materials from the home." When she said it all in one line, it sounded even worse than it had felt. "Yes." She nodded once. "We're filing for an emergency protective order today. We'll also begin steps for exclusive occupancy of the marital residence, although depending on title status and risk, you may decide you don't even want the house. We will freeze what we can, notify banks, alert the credit bureaus, and document every communication from here forward." My head spun. That sounds like a lot. It is, but it's less work than rebuilding after he empties accounts in your name. That sobered me fast. Carla slid a legal pad toward me. "Write down every violent or coercive incident you remember. Dates if you have them. If you don't, estimate. Also write what changed in Ashley over the years. Courts don't care about heartbreak the way people do, but patterns matter, and patterns win cases." I picked up the pen. At first, nothing came. Then everything did. The first time Mark punched a wall beside my head because dinner was late. The credit card he opened and hid. The time he told Ashley, when she was 10, that mommy cries too much and makes simple things difficult. The Christmas he returned the coat I bought myself and said we could not waste money on vanity while he spent $700 on a television. The apology flowers after shouting. The soft voice after insults. The way he always found my weak, loving places and used them like handles. By the time I finished, 3 pages were covered front and back. Carla read them without interrupting. Then she looked at me over the top of the pad. "You should know something, Lena." "What?" "Men like this often escalate when they realize the old version of you is gone." A chill passed through me. "What does that mean?" "It means he built his life around your compliance. He may not know who he is without it. And people who feel themselves losing control can become reckless." Reckless. The word followed me out of her office later that afternoon and into the parking garage, where I finally had 1 full minute alone. I sat inside my car, hands on the steering wheel, not starting it. My phone was full of updates. "Tasha, Ashley is quiet," she cried. "She ate half a sandwich. She keeps saying she didn't know." "Renee, she is safe here tonight. Door code changed. Staff aware." "Officer Medina, incident number attached. Please preserve all threatening messages." "Carla, do not respond directly to Mark." And then there was one final notification. A voicemail from an unknown number. I knew before I opened it that it was him. Mark's voice came through low and controlled, which somehow scared me more than yelling. "You want to run around making me look like some kind of criminal, go ahead. But listen carefully. I know you found out about the money. I know your mother poisoned you against me. And if you think you're taking my daughter and what belongs to this family, you are out of your mind." A pause. Then his voice dropped even lower. "Check the cedar chest before you start acting smart. Ask yourself why your mother kept that notebook hidden. Ask yourself what else she kept from you." My blood went cold. The message continued. "You think I'm the only liar in this story. Call me when you're ready for the truth." The voicemail ended. I sat absolutely still. My mother had warned me. My husband had stolen my documents. My daughter had finally seen enough to be afraid. And now Mark was pointing me back toward the red notebook like there was something inside it he thought could still destroy me. I looked up through the windshield at the concrete levels of the parking garage and felt a sickening certainty settle in my chest. Whatever was in that notebook was not just about proving who Mark had always been. It was about something my mother had hidden for years. Something he believed could turn Ashley against me all over again. And if he was right, then the ugliest betrayal in my life might not have started with my husband. It might have started long before him. By the time I reached the storage facility on the edge of town, the sky had turned the dull gray of a day that could not decide whether to rain. I parked under a flickering light and sat there for a moment, hands still on the steering wheel, listening to my own breathing. Mark's voicemail had not left my head all afternoon. "You think I'm the only liar in this story. Ask yourself what else she kept from you." I hated that he had gotten to me. I hated that even after everything, he still knew exactly where to press. He could smell uncertainty the way some people smell smoke, and once he found it, he fed it. But I also knew something he did not. Whatever my mother had hidden, whatever mistake she had made, whatever silence she had carried all these years, none of it changed what he had done. None of it erased the slap. None of it erased the theft, the manipulation, the years of blame, or the way he had used Ashley like a shield and a weapon. Still, I needed the truth. A man from the facility office walked me to the unit where the cedar chest had been stored. He had kind eyes and kept glancing at me the way people do when they know something is wrong but do not want to pry. "They told us not to release anything unless it was directly to you," he said, sliding the key into the padlock. "Guy came in here this morning pretty worked up. Said he was your husband." I nodded. That sounds like him. The man opened the door and stepped back. Inside the unit, against the far wall, sat my mother's cedar chest. I had not seen it in years. Dark wood, brass corners, slight scratch on the left side from when I was 10 and tried to drag it across her bedroom floor looking for Christmas gifts. I remembered her yelling my full name, then laughing when I came out covered in dust. For one painful second, I almost smelled her perfume. The man cleared his throat. "You need anything else, I'll be up front." "Thank you." He left, and I was alone. I knelt in front of the chest and touched the lid with both hands before opening it. Inside were folded quilts, a jewelry tin, my father's army photograph, 2 old church fans, a bundle of letters tied in ribbon, and beneath them, wrapped in a faded dish towel, a red notebook. I stared at it for several seconds before I picked it up. It was exactly the same. Cheap cardboard cover, black spiral binding, my own handwriting on the first page, faded but still there. Lena Foster, private, do not read. I almost laughed at that. Mark had spent years reading over my life without permission. My mother had taken the one place where I had tried to tell the truth and hidden it away. Private had never meant private in my life. It had only meant delayed discovery. I sat cross-legged on the concrete floor, opened the notebook, and started reading. At first, it was what I remembered. Little entries from when I was 19. Mark showing up 2 hours late and calling me ungrateful for being upset. Mark borrowing money from my mother and denying it. Mark getting angry when I wore lipstick because other men might look at me. Mark saying sorry so beautifully that every apology felt like a small wedding vow. Then the entries got heavier. March 12. He grabbed my arm so hard it bruised, then cried and said it happened because he loved me too much. April 3. Mom said this is how it starts. I told her she hates him. Maybe she just sees him better than I do. May 9. He said if I ever humiliate him in front of people again, I will regret it. I only corrected him about where we were supposed to meet. June 20. He says once we marry, things will calm down because I will stop acting so independent. I shut my eyes for a second. There it was, the whole ugly beginning in my own young handwriting. Not dramatic, not exaggerated, just steady little notes from a girl trying to prove to herself that things had happened the way she remembered them. My throat tightened. I turned more pages. Then I found one folded in half near the back, different from the others. A letter in my mother's handwriting, tucked between pages. My heart started beating hard again. I unfolded it. Lena, if you ever read this again, then I was right to keep it. There is one truth I never told you because I thought it would wound you more than help you. I may have been wrong, but if the time has come, then you deserve all of it. When you were a baby, your father did not die the way I let you believe. I stopped reading. The storage unit went silent around me. No traffic, no distant voices, nothing. I stared at the sentence until the words lost shape. All my life, I had believed my father died in a car accident on his way home from a night shift. That was the story. It had always been the story. Sad, simple, final. My hands turned cold. I forced myself to keep reading. There was a crash, yes, but it was not an accident. He had been drinking, and he was not alone. The woman in the car with him survived. She was 24, married, pregnant. I stopped breathing for a moment. Your father had been having an affair for almost a year. I found out after his death, when the woman's husband came to my door and threw the truth at me like a bucket of ice. I was 28, widowed, and holding you in my arms. I read the next lines with tears already falling. I could not bear for you to grow up with his betrayal hanging over your name, so I buried it. I let you worship a kinder version of him than the one who died. I told myself I was protecting you. Maybe I was only protecting myself from saying aloud that I had given my life to a man who humiliated me in secret. I looked up from the page and covered my mouth. My father. The man I had spent years missing, imagining, defending in my mind. The man my mother compared Mark to exactly once in my life, in a fight so bad I left her house for 6 months. He's more like your father than you realize, Lena. I had screamed at her for that, told her she was cruel, told her she had no right to drag a dead man through the dirt. But she had known. Of course she had known. I wiped my face and kept reading. When you brought Mark home, I saw familiar hunger in him. Not the same man, but the same weakness. Charm without discipline, need without honesty. The kind of man who wants devotion before he earns trust. I tried to stop you the only way I knew how, by force, by warning, by anger. It pushed you toward him instead. For that, I am sorry. If he ever learns this about your father, he may use it against you. He may say you chose a bad man because bad men are in your blood. Do not believe him. Your father's betrayal is not your inheritance. That line broke me. I bent forward with the letter pressed to my chest and cried harder than I had cried at my mother's funeral. Not just for her, for the young widow she had been, for the lies she had carried, for the girl I was, loving a father who had never been the man I thought, for how often women in my family had mistaken endurance for strength because there had never seemed to be another choice. After a while, I sat up again, exhausted. There was one more page tucked behind the letter, a newspaper clipping. Small town, Ohio, 26 years old. Headline about the crash. 2 injured, 1 dead. No names visible in the clipping because they had been folded under, but there was enough to know my mother was telling the truth. Mark had been right about one thing. My mother had kept something from me. But he had been wrong about the part that mattered. It did not turn me against her. It made me understand her. I closed the notebook slowly. Then my phone buzzed. Ashley. For a second, I just stared at her name. Then I answered. Hi, baby. Her voice was small and worn out. I have been calling. I looked at the screen. She had 3 missed calls while I was inside the notebook and the past. I'm sorry, I was reading something. Are you okay? It was such a simple question, but it shook me. Not because I was okay. I was, but because she was finally asking. No, I said honestly, but I will be. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Aunt Renee made spaghetti. It was bad. A sound came out of me that was half laugh, half sob. That sounds like Renee. Ashley gave a weak little laugh too, and for 1 second she sounded 8 again. Then the silence returned. Mom. Yes. I need to tell you something. I straightened. What is it? Her breathing changed. I could tell she was scared. Dad had me do more than call that lawyer office. My fingers tightened around the phone. Go on. Last month he told me to check your email while you were in the shower. He said he forgot the password to the insurance portal and needed to compare numbers. I did not think. I did not know. My heartbeat quickened. Ashley, what did you do? I reset your password, she whispered, for your main email. He already knew enough to answer some of the security questions. Your old school, your mom's town, stuff like that. Then he asked me to delete the notification emails after. I shut my eyes. There it was. Not just suspicion now, not just attempted access from a distance. He had used Ashley to get inside my accounts. Did he log into anything? I asked. I think he printed some stuff at work. He had a folder in his truck with your name on it. And 2 days ago he said if Grandma left anything, he would make sure the family got what it deserved before you wasted it on lawyers. The words made my stomach turn. Ashley kept going, now crying softly. I thought he meant bills, college, the house. I didn't know he meant taking it from you. I didn't know. I know you think I'm awful, but I really didn't know. I leaned back against the cedar chest and closed my eyes. I don't think you're awful. You should. No, I think you were listening to the wrong voice for too long. She started crying harder then, the kind that comes from shame finally cracking open. Mom, I said what he said about you. I laughed at you. I acted like you were the problem. I swallowed against the ache in my throat. Yes, you did. I deserved that truth. She needed it plain. But I also know who was teaching you how to see me, I said. And that matters too. Her crying softened into sniffing. I'm so sorry. I pressed my hand to my chest. There are some things we can fix, Ashley, but only if we tell the truth now, all of it. I will, she said quickly. I promise. Good. Then she took a shaky breath. There's something else. My whole body tensed. What? The day Grandma's funeral ended and you went back inside to get your sweater, Dad stayed outside by the car with me. He said something weird. I didn't understand it then. I barely remembered it till today. My mouth went dry. What did he say? He said, "Your grandma always knew Lena wasn't as smart as she thought she was. That's why she kept backup papers where a smarter person would find them." The storage unit seemed to go colder. Backup papers. I looked down at the cedar chest. Ashley went on. "Then last night, after you left, he kept saying, 'Where did she hide the second set? Where did Elaine hide the second set?'" "Second set of what?" I whispered. "I don't know," she said, "but he was not talking about money anymore. He was talking about papers. He kept saying if you found those first, you'd ruin him." My mind started moving fast now. The letter, the notebook, the clipping. What backup papers could ruin Mark? Something from the past. Something my mother had collected. Something she never trusted him with. Something proving he had been planning this for longer than anyone knew. I rose to my feet and began going through the chest again, faster this time. Quilts. Jewelry tin. Letters. Church fans. Faux. Then, beneath the false bottom panel, I did not remember being there. My fingers hit a narrow seam in the wood. I froze. "Ashley," I said, my voice barely there, "I need to call you back." "Why, what is it?" "I think I found what he was looking for." I ended the call and stared at the chest. Slowly, with shaking hands, I lifted the hidden panel. Under it was a sealed manila envelope, thick and heavy, with one line written across the front in my mother's handwriting. "For Lena. Open only when you are ready to know what Mark did before he married you." My knees almost gave out. Before he married me. Not after. Before. I sank back down onto the concrete floor, the envelope in both hands, too afraid to move and too desperate not to. For a long minute, I simply stared at it. Then I broke the seal. Inside were photocopies, handwritten notes, and 3 glossy color photographs. I pulled out the first photo and nearly dropped it. It was Mark. Much younger, thinner, hair darker. Standing outside a county courthouse. His arm was around a woman I had never seen before. And between them, maybe 4 years old, holding both their hands, was a little girl. I turned the photo over. On the back, in my mother's handwriting, were 4 words that stopped my heart. Mark's first wife and child. I grabbed the next photo. Same woman. Same little girl. Different date. Then the papers. Marriage certificate. Family court filing. A petition for child support. A restraining complaint later withdrawn. My vision blurred so badly I could barely read. Mark had been married before. Mark had a child. Mark had hidden an entire family from me. And my mother had known. No, more than known. She had gathered proof. I pulled out the final handwritten note from her with trembling fingers. "Lena, if you are reading this, then he has forced your hand at last. I hired an investigator 11 months before your wedding because something in that man would not let me sleep. He had already abandoned a wife and daughter in another state, left debts in both names, and lied about his work history. When I confronted him privately, he begged me not to tell you. Then he threatened that if I broke up the wedding, you would hate me forever. I chose wrong. I let fear make me silent again. But if he is harming you now, this envelope will help you end him." I stopped there, unable to breathe properly. End him. Not with violence. With truth. With proof. With everything he had spent 2 decades hiding. I looked down at the photographs spread across the cedar chest, then at the marriage certificate, then at the child support papers. My husband had not just betrayed me. He had built our entire marriage on a lie. And if this came out, it would not only destroy the story he told me. It would destroy the story he told Ashley about what kind of man he was. My phone started ringing again. "Mark." I stared at his name, flashing across the screen, while his hidden past lay open in my lap. It rang and rang, then stopped. A text came in right after. You have one last chance to stop this before your daughter hears something that will make her hate you forever. I looked at the screen, then at the papers. And for the first time in years, I was not afraid of what Mark knew. I was afraid of how far he was willing to go now that I knew more. You have one last chance to stop this before your daughter hears something that will make her hate you forever. I read Mark's text twice, then set my phone down on the cedar chest and looked again at the papers spread in front of me. His first wife and child. The marriage certificate. The child support case. The note from my mother. The private investigator's findings. For years, Mark had moved through my life like a man who believed truth was something flexible, something he could bend if he spoke with enough confidence. He had lied to me before we married, lied while we married, lied while raising our daughter, lied while stealing from me, lied while telling Ashley what kind of mother I was. And even now, with his whole false life laid open in front of me, he still thought fear would save him. For the first time in a very long time, my hands were steady. I called Carla. She answered right away. Tell me you did not go home. I didn't. Good, what happened? I took a breath. My mother hid documents, a lot of them. Proof Mark was married before, proof he had a child. There are court papers, child support filings, a note saying he threatened her not to tell me before the wedding. There was a beat of silence. Then Carla said, keep every single page. Do not meet him, do not respond emotionally. Photograph everything front and back, then bring it to me, right now. I did exactly that. I took pictures of every document and every photograph. Then I packed the originals back into the envelope and drove straight to Carla's office. When she saw the papers, her whole face changed. This is huge, she said. How huge? She spread the documents out neatly on her desk. Big enough to destroy his credibility in court. Big enough to explain financial fraud if he used false information in your marriage, taxes, or any joint applications. Big enough to support intent, deception, concealment, coercive control, maybe more once we dig. I sat across from her, exhausted. He says he knows something that will make Ashley hate me. Carla looked up. Men like this love the promise of a secret. Sometimes they do have one. Sometimes they just know fear makes people obedient. The question is not whether he has something ugly to say. The question is whether you are willing to stop living under the threat of what he might say next. That hit me hard because it was true. My whole marriage had been shaped by what I was trying to avoid. His anger, his silence, his blame, his disappointment, his version of events. I had become smaller and smaller just to lower the chance of one more bad night. And it had never worked. Carla tapped the papers. We need to move fast. I've already filed the emergency protection request. Once this is added, along with the incident report and theft of your documents, he's going to realize the ground is moving under him. I gave a tired laugh. He already knows. He's threatening me. Good, she said calmly. That means he's scared. That evening, I finally saw Ashley. Renee had brought her to a quiet room at the women's center upstairs, where the lighting was soft and the chairs were mismatched and kind. That was the only way I could describe the place. Kind. It did not pretend pain wasn't there. It just did not punish you for carrying it. Ashley stood when I walked in. For a second, we just looked at each other. She had washed her face, but her eyes were swollen. Her hair was tied back badly, like she had done it in a rush. She looked older than 16 and younger than 16 at the same time. Mom, she said. I nodded. Then she started crying again. I opened my arms, and she came to me. The force of her nearly knocked me back a step. She held on to me like she was drowning. And maybe she was. Maybe we both were, just in different parts of the same water. I held her until her crying softened. I'm sorry, she kept saying. I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. I know. No, she said, pulling back enough to look at me. I need you to hear all of it. I was awful to you. I believed him. I laughed at you. I made you feel alone in your own house." Tears filled my eyes. "Yes, you did." She nodded like she deserved that. Then she wiped her face with both hands. "I thought he was the strong one," she said. "He always said you were emotional and confused and that he had to hold things together. He made it sound like you made life hard on purpose. And whenever you looked tired or upset, it made his story look true." That hurt because it was so precise. "That is how it works," I said quietly. "Some people create the wound, then point to the bleeding as proof there was something wrong with you all along." Ashley sat down heavily in the chair across from me. "Did he really try to get Grandma's money before she died?" "Yes." "She looked sick. I didn't know." "I know." She swallowed. "Did you know he was married before?" I stared at her. "No." Her mouth fell open. "Then what was he talking about? He kept saying if this came out, you'd look stupid for staying." I sat very still. So he had known I might find out. Maybe he always feared my mother's silence would end one day. I told Ashley the truth carefully. Not every legal detail, not every ugly line, but enough. Enough for her to understand that the father she trusted had hidden a whole life before us. Enough for her to know he had lied from the beginning. She stared at me, stunned. "A wife, a child." "Yes." She looked down at her hands and whispered, "I don't even know who he is." That was the deepest wound in the room, and not just for her. Because the answer was the same for both of us. Neither did I. That night we stayed at the center. Not because I wanted to, because I was done pretending want had anything to do with survival. At nearly midnight, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "I know where you and Ashley are." My whole body turned cold. Then another message. "You think those shelter people can protect you from the truth?" I showed it to Carla and the center staff immediately. The police were notified. Security tightened. They moved us to a different room without telling anyone. I barely slept. At 8 the next morning, Carla called. "Protective order granted. Temporary, but active immediately. Also, police located your car title and passport in a dumpster behind Mark's workplace. Not everything was recovered, but enough to prove document theft. And there's more." I sat up straighter on the narrow bed. "What now?" "His first wife has been found." My heart kicked hard. "What?" "Her name is Denise. The investigator on your mother's old file had enough identifiers to track her. She lives in Indiana now. She has agreed to speak." I pressed my hand to my forehead. "Why would she agree?" "Because," Carla said, "he did to her almost exactly what he did to you." I closed my eyes. Of course he did. Patterns. That word again. By afternoon, I was in Carla's office with Ashley beside me and a laptop open on the desk. Denise appeared on screen a few seconds later. She looked about my age, maybe a little older. Tired eyes, gentle face, the kind of face that had learned to be careful. When she saw Mark's recent photograph on Carla's file, she gave one bitter laugh. "Still doing that same smile," she said, "like he's the nicest man in the room." Ashley went rigid beside me. Denise's gaze moved to me. "You must be Lena." I nodded. "And that's your daughter." Ashley nodded too, her face pale. Denise took a long breath. "I'm sorry for all of it." Then she told us. Mark had met her when they were very young, married fast, moved twice in 4 years, worked jobs that sounded better in stories than on paper, borrowed money, lied about bills, opened credit in both their names, got angry when she questioned him, sweet 1 hour, cruel the next. When their daughter was 3, Denise found out he had emptied their savings and disappeared for 2 weeks with another woman. He came back crying and apologizing. She let him stay. 6 months later, he shoved her during an argument while their little girl watched. She filed a complaint, then withdrew it. "Because he begged?" I asked. Denise gave a small, painful smile. "Because I was broke, ashamed, and pregnant with hope even after I should have known better." Ashley looked like she might be sick. Denise went on. When she finally left, he stopped paying support after less than a year. Changed states, changed jobs, changed churches, changed stories. It took her years to stop hearing his voice in her head every time something went wrong. I sat there with my throat aching, because every word sounded like another version of my own life. "Did your daughter keep contact with him?" I asked. Denise's face hardened. "No. He sent birthday cards twice, then vanished when a judge got serious about enforcement. He likes the idea of being a father more than the responsibility of being one." Ashley made a small, broken sound beside me. Denise heard it. Her face softened. "Honey," she said gently to Ashley, "what he did to your mom is not your fault. And what he is does not get to become what you are." Ashley covered her mouth and cried silently. After the call ended, the room stayed quiet for a long time. Finally, Ashley whispered, "He made me think Mom was the unstable one." Carla looked at her kindly. "That is common. People like your father survive by assigning their guilt to someone else. It keeps their image clean and their target confused." Ashley nodded slowly, like the world was rearranging itself in real time. Then came the hearing. Not the final one, the first serious one, the one that sets the tone, the one where a man like Mark has to stand in a room where charm matters less than records. He came in wearing a navy shirt and the face he used for church. Calm, wounded, misunderstood. If I had seen him years ago from across a room like that, I might have felt sorry for him. Now I felt nothing warm at all. He looked at me, then at Ashley, then at Carla's folders stacked on the table. For the first time in 20 years, I saw something close to uncertainty on his face. His lawyer tried to frame it like a marital conflict that had gotten exaggerated. Stress, financial pressure, miscommunication, hurt feelings. My lawyer answered with documents, messages, police reports, the attempted estate access, the stolen IDs, the destroyed room, and finally the envelope my mother had saved. Then Denise's affidavit. Then proof that Mark had failed to disclose a prior marriage and child on multiple legal forms over the years. By the time Carla finished, the room felt different. Mark's lawyer stopped sounding smooth. The judge looked at Mark for a long, quiet moment and said, "Mr. Carter, I suggest you begin taking these proceedings very seriously." That was the first crack. The second came outside the courthouse. Mark caught sight of Ashley beside me and changed direction fast. "Ashley, baby, don't let them fill your head with lies." I stepped forward at once, but Ashley moved before I could. "Don't call me that," she said. Mark stopped. His face changed, surprise first, then anger trying to hide inside sadness. "Ashley," he said softly, "I'm your father." She shook her head, tears in her eyes. A father doesn't make his daughter laugh at her mother. A father doesn't make her help steal from her. People around us slowed, watched. Mark noticed. He lowered his voice. "Honey, your mother is emotional right now. She's twisting things because she found money and wants to run." Ashley's whole face changed then. I watched it happen, a door shutting, a child stepping back. The exact second belief turned to knowledge. "You still sound like you think I'm stupid," she said. Mark opened his mouth. She stepped back toward me instead. That was the third crack. The rest came faster than he expected. The credit freeze caught 2 more suspicious attempts to open accounts in my name. The protective order became longer term. The divorce filing went from tense to brutal once the hidden marriage, financial lies, and document theft were formally entered. His employer suspended him after police followed up about the recovered documents behind the building. Church friends stopped calling me dramatic when copies of the court record began circulating the way truths always do once they become public enough to embarrass the right person. And one Sunday, about 3 weeks after the hearing, Ashley sat at the small kitchen table in the temporary apartment Carla's network had helped me get, looked at me over 2 mugs of instant coffee, and asked the question I had been waiting for. "Why didn't you leave sooner?" There was no accusation in it, just grief. I answered honestly. Because I was scared. Because I was tired. Because I kept hoping the next apology was real. Because I thought surviving him was the same as protecting you. And because after a while, being treated badly can start to feel normal if it happens slowly enough. Ashley nodded with tears in her eyes. I made it worse. Sometimes, yes. She bowed her head. I hate that. Good, I said gently. Hated enough never to repeat it. She looked up. Then I told her something I had only recently learned myself. Regret is only useful if it changes what comes next. She cried, I cried. Then we cleaned the tiny apartment together and laughed once when the vacuum made a horrible dying noise. It was not a big warm movie moment. It was better than that. It was real, small, awkward, honest. The kind of healing you can trust because it does not perform. A month later, I read my mother's letter one more time and visited her grave for the first time since the funeral. I told her she had been right about Mark. I told her she had been wrong to hide so much alone. I told her I understood now that women can love badly, warn badly, protect badly, and still love with their whole hearts. Then I thanked her. Not just for the money. For the proof. For the chance to begin again, before I was too old to remember I deserved peace. As for revenge, it came exactly the way real revenge often comes. Not with shouting. Not with slapping back. Not with broken windows or ruined tires or anything dramatic enough for neighbors to film. It came with truth. It came with records, signatures, testimony, and one daughter finally saying no. It came with Mark standing in court while the life he built out of lies collapsed under the weight of his own history. It came with me refusing to rescue his image one more time. The day the temporary orders became final enough for him to be removed from the house completely, I went back with an officer escort. My bedroom had been repaired badly, closet crooked, drawer tracks uneven, mattress new. The room still felt like a place someone had searched for my future and failed to find it. I stood in the doorway for a long minute. Then I walked to the dresser, opened the top drawer, and set my mother's letter inside. Not hidden. Just kept. A reminder. Ashley came up behind me. You okay? I looked around the room, then at her. Yes, I said, and for once it was true. When we left the house that day, I did not look back. Not because it did not matter. Because it finally didn't own me. And that, more than anything, was what shocked Mark in the end. Not that I cried. Not that I fought. But that I stopped being afraid. If this story touched you, take a second to like, comment, and subscribe. Because sometimes the hardest lesson in family is this. Love without truth becomes a trap. Regret without change becomes a cycle. And the quiet person everyone thinks will endure anything may be the very one who ends the whole story by finally telling the truth.